Welcome back. You're now watching the political segment of the weekend show. Our topic of discussion today is two-pronged: the proposed hate speech bill and the social media bill. We start off with the National Commission for the Prohibition of Hate Speeches Bill 2019, which is also known as the Hate Speech Bill, which proposes death by hanging for anyone found guilty of any form of hate speech that results in the death or of another person. Hate speech is defined as an abusive or threatening speech or writing that expresses prejudice against a particular group, especially on the basis of race, religion, ethnic origin, nationality, disability, or sexual orientation. In other words, hate speech is a statement intended to demean and brutalize another person, or the use of cruel and derogatory language on the basis of real or alleged membership in a social group. The bill, sponsored by the Deputy Senate Whip, Senator Aliyu Abdullahi, was first introduced in the 8th Senate, prescribed death, among others, by hanging for anyone found guilty of hate speech. Very interesting. Later on in the program, we'll also delve into the social media bill, also known as the Protection from Internet Falsehood and Manipulation and Other Related Matters Bill, which passed second reading this week. The sponsor of the legislation, Senator Mohammed Sani Musa, said the bill was aimed at curbing fake news on the internet, and fines for spreading fake news varies from a fine of 10 million naira to a complete shutdown of your internet by your internet provider. Both of these bills have generated mixed reactions from Nigerians at home and in diaspora. Joining us today to discuss these issues, we have
with us in the studio a communication specialist and activist, Maryam Laushi. Welcome to the weekend show.
Thank you.
And good to see you after so long.
Yeah, thank you.
Also with us, we have Aliyu Abdullahi, Special Advisor, the Presidency Office of the First Lady. Welcome to the weekend show.
Thank you for having me.
A return guest in the studio with us, ONOJA ILEMONA. He's a legal practitioner and an activist who I know is quite passionate about this topic. Welcome back to the weekend show.
Yes, actually.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. So let's start off with the hate speech bill. The Senate wants to create a commission dedicated to the curbing of hate speech in Nigeria. At first glance, it seems very attractive. Then you read the bylaws and you realize that they're proposing death by hanging for anyone who is, found to be perpetrating fake news. How do you respond to that?
Well, actually, initially for me, looking at the commission, it didn't make any sense. It seemed like a waste of money, to be honest. And we're at a time in Nigeria where we should not be wasting money, especially not on the legislative arm of government. Looking at the death penalty, that is really extreme. I think in any case where somebody perpetrates an act such as putting out fake news or putting out hate speech that results in death, there should be a penalty for that, because resulting in death, it's actually quite an extreme situation and it's someone's loss. So there should be harsh punishments, but death by hanging seems way too harsh. And then also because there's a lot of ambiguity. So speaking to lawyers, they say that the bill has a lot of ambiguity. And so in a country in Nigeria where people are not able to access good legal counsel or support, then it could easily lead to people being hanged because of something that they can't defend. So that's a problem.
Well, I mean, in the last 5 years, and I think this has been a global trend, especially as a result of world politics. We saw it happen in the United States of America, and we saw it happen a lot in Nigeria between 2011 and then to 2015. So 2011 was just the beginning. In 2015, we've seen a lot of hate speech, especially on the internet. And Aliyu, this is for you. Do you think there should be a law on hate speech? Do you think there should be a new one? Do you think there should be a law at all? Or do you think this is a waste of our time?
To be honest, the world is changing. And there should be a law, of course, support a law on hate speech, because it's not only in Nigeria, actually. Even in the United States, if you go, there are several laws being enacted by different states, actually. I think it's only about 5 states in the United States that have not enacted one form of a law that deals with the protection of a certain class of group. Be it this hate speech, the targeted hate campaign or speeches.
Let me interrupt you, Aliyu.
Yes.
In your opinion, how would you define hate speech? Because that's one of the first problems we've noted, that nobody has a clear-cut definition of hate speech. Just like Maryam said, the ambiguity in this law is an issue. So how do you define it before we even suggest it?
For me, hate speech is anything that you can say that will actually that will incite people, because we have to really separate, for example, insults, abuses from hate speech. We know hate speech when we see one. When, for example, if I make a post and I'm a big influencer, for example, in a certain place or community or platform, and I make a certain post that this particular group are this way, we're not supposed to cohabit together, for example, because they are either bad, or they are malicious, or even my religion, for example, prohibits me from associating with this kind of group of people. And you know, we live in a country where we are supposed to be equally treated as one group. So there are various forms of hate speech to me. Yes, I know. I agree with you. If you're talking about that specific bill on hate speech, I've gone to read the provisions. There are a lot of work, if it will work, that needs to be done on it. But when you see hate speech, I assure you, you yourself would know it. Every one of us would know it.
Yeah, so we need to, there's, okay, there's the Cyber Crimes Act,
yes,
which already covers most of this.
And the Terrorism Act also.
Exactly. So if we already have legislation in place that protects other individuals from killing themselves due to hate speech, why do we then need to create a commission for this? ONOJA, let me bring you in here. Why can't we just go ahead and amend the legislation that we already have?
Before we even begin to speak about legislation, before that, speech is often, first and foremost, as a result of action. Hate speech, as we know it, is usually, first and foremost, predicated by actions in society and responses to those actions. Resolve that, you wouldn't have any hate speech. Really, this is the byproduct of very, very lazy thinking. The exigencies in our society and the circumstances under which our people are forced to live is the reason why they speak out in all sorts of forms. If I come out and say, you know what, I think that this government has skewered appointments and it is ethnocentric by reason of its skewering of its appointments to one side of the country, is that hate speech or is that reality? If I'm from the North Central and I say a certain category of people really shouldn't be living with us because they're killing us in our farms and on our lands, is that hate speech or reality? Remove the problem. Don't treat the symptom. And this is laziness at its highest possible level.
Well, ONOJA,
and I'll tell you.
ONOJA, but you just said something. I'll let you continue. But you just said, so you, for instance, you're from a place and certain people are killing you, and you say we don't want people here because they are killing us. And as a result of the influence which you have, someone says I agree and takes the second step to go kill people who he or she believes shouldn't be there.
Okay, so
hasn't that contributed?
Quickly to address that, if we had peace, justice, equity in our society, if we had justice, because there cannot be peace without justice, if we had justice in our society in the first place, would we have a need for me to make the second statement? And that's all I'm talking about. Make the first, resolve, and that's all I'm talking about. Unless and until, and you know the funny thing is this, yeah, you're trying to regulate speech and the ability of people to speak out in responses to situations? When are we going to have you regulate the actions that make those situations possible in the first place? You can stop us assuming, and this is something I am experiencing firsthand, where you're telling people, let us not have violent responses to situations, and then the violence continues. And the people you're speaking to come back to you repeatedly to say, how long are we going to be peaceful? How long will it be before we exercise our constitutional rights to self-defense, and so on and so forth? How long?
Maryam?
I think he has a point in the sense that you cannot. Okay, first of all, when it comes to hate speech, it's not just in Nigeria, and it's not just starting now on the internet. Nigeria has always been the kind of place where people say, because this person is from this tribe or because this person is from this region, that you don't like the person, and those are issues that we face. But expecting justice to resolve that, I don't think it's possible, because there's justice in the US. They still go through situations where people from the LGBT community suffer hate speech. Hate speech leads to hate crimes, like you said. So in the situation where someone who is influential, for example, in a church, comes out to say, oh yes, they're killing us, let's go and kill the Fulanis, who, there were a lot of Fulani headsmen that perpetrated a lot of evil acts. But when you call out Fulanis in general and start talking about hate towards Fulanis in general, then you are targeting people that may not have committed any crime at all. And so, of course, there has to be a consequence for somebody who incites that against a group of people when there are people committing the crime and there are just people who identify with the ethnic group. There has to be consequences for that. And so, in the sense that, yes, justice matters, there should be that aspect of dealing with those situations, but there should also be consequences for hate speech and inciting violence against a group of people.
So it's safe to say that the three of you disagree with the need to create this commission to curb hate speech. The three of you disagree, yes, despite your different political leanings. You're APC, you're PDP, and I believe you're non-partisan.
Well,
you're now partisan. Okay, but I want to hear from everyday.
I didn't say I disagreed, actually.
Okay.
I may not agree with some of the things in the bill. I think it has to really go. There is a lot of work that has to be done in it, and that's the entire a reason for the legislative processes. There are various readings, there are public hearing to be held, and then, stakeholders would make inputs. And even the senator that sponsored the bill, he said he's open for to those suggestions and to look at the issue of penalty and things like that. And I agree, even me, like Maryam, my first instinct when I saw the bill, the proposed bill about establishing the commission, I actually thought about the cost-cutting measures that we should be having in the country. So we have so many government agencies. I felt, yes, if we can tweak it, let it be handled, by some of the existing bodies.
But are you aware that we already have acts? We already have laws that already prohibit hate speech.
No. Let me speak to that, please. I see. The thing is this. We really need a specific legislation on this matter. I heard you talking about Terrorism Act. Some people will tell you so many libel laws. The Criminal Act is there, code, whether you're in the Southern or Penal Code in the North. But the truth of the matter is, despite all these laws that touches on this, for example, even the penalty that people are so worked up on that, the truth is actually covered by our laws. Whatever action you do, if it results in the death of someone, barring manslaughter, accident, mistakes, you are actually, the punishment is death, actually.
So isn't that you contradicting yourself?
I'm not. Let me tell you why.
Gentlemen,
can I tell you why I'm not contradicting
One second,
myself?
I'll let you do that. I want to open up our phone lines. I want to hear from everyday Nigerians who are watching this show and your opinion about the hate speech hate speech bill. The number to call is 080-537-89021. That's 080-537-89021. Okay, finish up your thoughts quickly.
I'm not contradicting myself. Yes, there are some laws that will take care of some various aspects of this, but you see, we know how our laws worked, how our criminal justice system also worked. And we need a legislation specifically that is on this hate speech, that talks on hate speech, not relying on all the different laws that you can get from here and there because of the peculiarities of adjudicating these cases. And again, the reason for having it also sends a signal, you know, a deterrent signal, because the conventional laws that you are talking about that can address these issues have not been effective in the past, either through enforcement or even through adjudication process, the criminal justice system. So now, but if we have this bill already, even from the discussion that is taking place in the country about this bill, a lot of people have begun to retrace their steps. Even if the bill comes into force, it's not like it's going to act retroactively. It's going to act after it comes into existence. But I think we need a law on hate speech. This bill, as it is, needed a lot of work. I don't support it in its entirety, and I don't support the establishment of a new commission. But I think we should have a law, and another existing body should actually take care of it. But that's my position.
Something which also I notice has made Nigerians quite worried about this is the speed at which some of these things are being passed. In the last 1 month, we've seen these bills go from first reading to second reading, and you're getting voice votes, and it's just pretty much scaling through.
That's the other bill, not this one.
I know, but the point is, with the speed at which this is happening, you also compare that to other bills which we've had, like the Gender Equal Opportunities Bill, the petroleum, the PIB, the different parts of it. And so, ONOJA, bringing in also the Internet Falsification and Manipulations Prohibitions Bill, the Social Media Bill. There's a section which pretty much gives the police authority to tell NCC to shut down the internet in a particular location if they feel something is going on. And there's also another part which, and this is in layman terms, which says that if you are saying stuff which paints the government in a bad light, which belittles the effort of the government, then it means that you could be prosecuted for that. So where do we draw the line between criticism and actual internet falsification?
And this
well?
For me, and for quite a lot of people who have interacted with in discussions, the hypocritical nature of the people who promote these things, and with all due respect, the party from which a fundamental part, a large number of them come from, you can't ignore the hypocrisy. Because if we went into the very, not too recent, not too distant past, we see that the very same things that these people are seeking to shut down, that they participated in, the very same things. I mean, I can easily refer to Governor Nasru El-Rufai's Christian Boko Haram statement. I can very easily refer to that.
Sorry, Onoja, just 1 second, put a pin in it. We have a caller. Your name and where are you calling from, please?
Okay, I'm Hamad Tijani Halir. I'm calling from Kaduna State.
Your name is?
Yes, I'm Tijani Halir, calling from Kaduna State.
Okay, thank you for calling. What's your contribution to the conversation?
Okay, thank you very much. Contribution and this is about this bill. I feel it's very, very important in Nigeria. Because if you look at our politicians, if we have a capital law in this country, a lot of unnecessary killing that is happening in our politics and some other ethnic activities, it will not be happening. People will be afraid of it because you will look at the judgment that is passed on so person. Just like what Mr. Onoja said, it says that if the law is implemented very well, there won't be necessary for agitating or saying some certain words that will result as a speech. But it was because the law is not, we don't respect the law. Even the leaders themselves do not respect the law. That was why you see the country is still the way it is.
All right.
In a situation where you have a law and the law is being respected, I am telling you, we will not be putting all these things in.
All right,
Let me
thank you
give
so much for your
something
contribution
instant.
to the conversation. So,
I am
Onoja,
not
do you want
a
to respond to
politician,
that and
but I
continue
have
with
to be honest to you.
If we don't need new laws. We need implementations of laws that we already have. If you go through Nigeria's history of violent conflict, dating back to the 80s, one of the things that have stood out is how we never have any group of people who have been identified as being the cause of these problems, who have been identified as being the sponsors and the funders of these conflicts, and who have been arrested, prosecuted, and then convicted. And because we have never had that, we have a situation where they have happened again and again and again.
But
even though
we've had Boko Haram, we've had IPOB leader being arrested and prosecuted.
Even though we have had those things happen repeatedly, and we have laws that cover those things, that prohibit those things. Now, in direct answer to your question about IPOB and Boko Haram,
yes,
we've seen, and I was mentioning that, how those things have been used as tools for political manipulation, even from political parties to the government. Over the years, we've seen in active service how these things have been turned into issues for political manipulation.
Okay, I think so we have a call, Onoja.
Another one. Okay, your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Aliyu.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Your name and where you're calling from, please.
Good morning.
Good morning. Your name and where you're calling from?
Yeah, my name is Aliyu. I'm known as Aliyu.
All right, what's your contribution to the conversation?
I just want to make it very simple and ask a simple contribution here. I just want to make a very simple contribution here. I want to ask all the guys in the studio defending this bill that would they have get this bill to take a retroactive effect from 2012, such that all their evidence of people on Facebook are also capturing it. So, it is either have to agree to end this bill to help, because what they are doing is this, they are trying to particularly benefit from this. So, if you think that the bill is positive and good, I actually support this bill to take a retroactive effect from 2012. If they agree sincerely that it is retroactive, I will go on the street and support this bill. But if they will not agree that it should take a retroactive of 2003, such that all that is there during the past administration before anything on board are also put in context. Then they are just being funny, disingenuous, and thinking about it. I want to tell them that this government will be out of power one day, and it will have every reason also to criticize this government. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Aliyu, do you want to respond to that? Did you hear what he said?
I got some part.
He was saying that if you are in support of this bill, so would you agree for it to take effect from 2012, before this government got into power?
Well, number one, actually, that's not how laws work. I actually address it, Law doesn't actually work retroactively. That's the truth. It has to work from when it actually commences. But see, I understand the sarcasm or the direction where the caller was trying to go. And I think my friend here, ILEMONA, has almost tried to make reference to that.
I will continue to make reference to it.
It's all right. I didn't want to actually, when I come here, I really wanted to drop my partisan hat down, and I wanted to talk just like an average Nigerian,
whichever cap you choose to wear.
Considering this. See, it's not an excuse whether whoever or all of us in this country who were guilty of the same actions that we want to really legislate now, because we find it apprehensive. Maybe someone may call it hypocritical.
It is hypocritical.
You're entitled to your own opinion. But the thing is, if we as a country, we come together and see that those actions, we find it reprehensible and not good, a conduct, people are losing their lives in drops because of this kind of thing. I had so many answers. I have so many answers for ILEMONA. I didn't want to, but Maryam touched on some. I am Fulani completely, and I have never subscribed to the violent ways of some of the headsmen that conduct their ways of life. But he had ILEMONA, even from his comment, that if he, from North Central, didn't want certain group of people to leave because they are going into their farms, destroying their farms or so, how is that a hate speech? You heard what he said. He said group of people. And he just came short of calling Fulani. But
I was very specific. You're the calling Fulani was deliberate.
So
because I don't want to be guilty of what you're trying to accuse me
But you
of.
can understand
I was very deliberate.
how it is. Now I'll give you so many scenarios where people,
just one so that we can also get Maryam's view.
There are many crimes that were perpetrated by locals of places, but due to that area where everything was blamed on Fulani headsmen, the culprits that everybody wants to blame was Fulani headsmen. But later investigation, you find out locals of that place. Please, can you? I don't interrupt you. See, so later you find that the locals of those places were actually responsible. So, and maybe sometimes when jungle justice has already been carried on, I have so many examples. In Kaduna, we have the case of Audi Mekori in 2017. He actually tweeted something, about a crisis that was going in southern Kaduna, and retracted. But before he retracted, the damage has been done. People believed, people believe what he said because he's a really big influencer in that part of, and also on social media, So he retracted, but you can see the danger.
Yeah, the
danger,
done.
And you see, this is cut across. It's not about partisan politics. It's not about a PDP team or an APC team. It's about us as a society, as Nigerians. And like I said, we could be guilty. Everybody from the both divides, we could be guilty of this. But if someone thought and the legislative houses felt that we should have a law on that, if I start mentioning the countries that have actually enacted big laws on hate speech, we will not live here. From Singapore, from Dubai, even in the United Kingdom.
How many of them are democratic?
But hold on. In United Kingdom, the Communication Act.
Yes.
I have a list of countries.
Okay, before we even move further, I want to bring Maryam back into this conversation. But ONOJA, I also want you to clarify when you made the statement about a certain group of people, because on this program we stand for equity and equality amongst all ethnic groups. So were you referring to?
Of course not.
Okay.
Of course not.
Okay, so
speaking as, and I will aggressively defend myself on that charge. I also have Fulani relatives. I have Fulani blood that flows through various parts.
So
of
you
my
don't
family.
believe that a certain ethnic group shouldn't cohabit with?
Any ethnic group should be prevented from existing in any part of the country.
Okay.
Having said that, I will also say this: that if we identify a certain category of people who either commit or enable the commission of crimes, we should be able to say, until we can do this and clarify and resolve this so that these crimes cannot be committed, then we have reservations. And that should not be, that cannot be, and I will not accept that that is hate speech in the manner that he just tried to define it.
Maryam.
It is self-preservation, and self-preservation is an inalienable right. You cannot define that as hate speech. And this is where my worry is, that when people make simple statements that are defined and are saying from a point of view of we have to be able to exist, we have to be able to survive, help us survive, people do this mischievous thing that he just tried to do and categorize that as hate speech.
Okay,
right now, he just manifested in living color what the possibilities of misdirecting and misaccusing people of these sorts of things and then putting us in harm's way.
Let's come back to the topic. And so this is where we come back to ambiguity. This is where we come back to the actors also. Somebody said earlier that this is just to put fear in people, and when people are scared, they wouldn't do X, Y, Z. How democratic is this? You also hear examples like Singapore, Dubai, the variations in France and the UK, those also exist. How does this actually, what's your take on all of this? You've heard both of their takes on it?
I think that, like I said earlier, the ambiguity is dangerous. Looking through the bill, I saw that it's somehow trying to also protect politicians, people in power, and that's problematic because these laws should be created to protect the population of Nigeria, the ordinary citizens. And so I think that for the people who are proposing to pass the bill into law, they should ask themselves who they are representing and who this law is protecting. They should not use it as an excuse to protect themselves from situations where they need to be criticized. Social media is probably the only place where Nigerians are free to criticize because there is so much restriction when it comes to TV and radio and newspapers.
And even peaceful protests right now,
even
it
peaceful
almost isn't
protests,
allowed.
it's almost not allowed because sometimes you find that you are banned from doing some of these things. And so there shouldn't be that object of using fear to stop people from talking. I absolutely agree with that. But I feel, again, there should be consequences for hate speech and promoting falsehood that results in people's death.
Okay, we have, yeah, 1 second. We have a caller. Your name and where you're calling from? Your name and where you're calling from, please. Okay, we lost that call. Sorry. Before you go into it, Maryam, I want to distinguish between the hate speech bill and the social media bill. Two completely different bills.
Exactly.
Yes.
But this conversation we're having here happens every day on social media. I'm sure each and every one of you sitting on this couch have had something said about you. I know I have.
Yes.
That's completely
I know,
untrue.
I've seen
Yes.
all of you here. You've also
I was
had
a victim many times.
Exactly,
actually.
and I've
too.
used existing legislation such as the Cyber Crime Act to fight against those people perpetrating falsehood. So with this bill this internet falsehood bill, looking to shut down the internet for people who are perpetrating fake news, is it extreme? Is it too extreme as well?
Yeah, to me, it's really extreme to talk about shutting down the internet. What I do think can be done is there are sites that I probably will not mention them, but there are sites that continuously put out fake news, and we see them they act a lot during elections and they confuse people a lot and put out a lot of fake news. I think such sites should be shut down once it's proven that they continuously put out fake news with ill intent. But in terms of shutting down the internet, absolutely not, because if you're living, whether we are living in a democracy or not, shutting down the internet is unacceptable, because this means you are losing out on your access to communicating with people, expression, association, and so there is a lot of there are many human rights that shutting down the internet infringes upon. But I believe that accounts and sites that continuously put out fake news can be shut down, and Twitter and Facebook already have some of these functions where when you find an account is continuously putting out hate speech or lies or whatever, they shut down the accounts, and I think that's the best solution.
So there's already a solution.
Yes.
Aliyu.
You see, the thing is this, a lot of people haven't even taken the time to actually read that proposed bill. That I'm not talking about the internet falsehood and manipulation. This thing that Maryam just said actually is contained in that bill, and there are several categories of regulations. I think we don't just jump to the worst of them, and we have seen cases where the internet does blogs, for example, that are specialized in peddling fake news. Some of them are not even in the country. Some of them are actually domains that are hosted outside the country and things like that. All these bills seeks to do is to empower the necessary agencies, government agencies, in this case, not another new commission, but existing ones, that has the capacity and capability to collaborate with NCC to do the necessary things. And for example, and I agree with you when you said that there is a cybercrime. Perhaps that can be amended to actually include the positive sides of this bill, in part of cybercrime. Nothing bad in it. But my concern is this: when people try to just use hate speech to justify the continuous existence of how things are being done currently. I think it's wrong because even countries with more developed democracies, for example, the United Kingdom has the Communication Act of 2003, which has been used many times, and a lot of people have even been jailed. There is a woman called Laetitia Avia from France, who has actually promoted a bill similar to this one that we are seeing today, and it's working in France because of all the fake news that is happening.
The internet falsehood and manipulation.
Yeah, exactly.
You mean. Okay, so you've spoken about the positive sides and how the Cybercrime Act can be.
Yeah, it's either we have this bill or
exactly.
or
So
take
ONOJA,
out
I'm sure
and
you
put
read
it
the
in
35
Cybercrime
pages of the. Sorry, let me ask my question. Okay, I'm sure you read the 35 pages of the proposed bill. So have you read everything? Okay, what do you think are some of the negative clauses in there?
It takes one bad clause.
Exactly, that shouldn't, that we shouldn't support.
Jurisdictionally, they only apply to your country. This law says inside or outside of Nigeria. It begins to reach into territories that the Nigerian National Assembly.
But the actions to be taken is to be taken into the country.
He
has actually interrupted me before, so I can do the same thing.
2 minutes left.
Okay, so one.
You can apply the application of the regulation is in the country, even though the action was taken outside the country.
Aliyu,
is on us.
Let's have some other. Let's hear.
No, let it not misinform bios.
Done inside or outside the country.
That has consequences here.
It says, it did not restrict itself to consequences here. It
then
said
you do not read the
inside
bill.
or outside the country. Take a law the way, literal interpretation of law. You take it the way it is written. 1. 2, it says that you have the permission to, it gives, in several instances, it gives access, permission to the Nigerian police to unilaterally issue orders to NCC to block access to the internet. 1, 2, 3. It restricts your ability to apply to court for a review or to question any order given by the police restraining you from doing anything.
There was an appeal to High Court there. There is an appeal there.
Can you calm down? It says you
but
can
you are
only
misinforming
go
people.
to,
That's the problem.
It says you can only go to the High Court after you have first of all gone back to the authority and then your order has been rejected. Meaning that if your order is delayed, as long as your appeal to the police is delayed, you cannot go to the High Court. That is in direct contravention of the provisions of Section 6 of the Constitution, which says you can approach the court to determine your rights, obligations, or liabilities. My friend, you're a lawyer. You should know that. That you are here defending that. You are here defending that.
So they are contradicting. So they are contradiction. Okay, gentlemen, this conversation has to continue on social media. We don't have enough time. ONOJA, Aliyu, Maryam, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you too.